Hello everyone. In this video I want to refer to the Israeli wars that have happened since the establishment of the State of Israel until today, focusing on the wars in which the Palestinians participated. I'm not going to really dwell on each war, but just point out the main points and do a quick review of the operations, the wars, and the terrorists' acts. So let's get started. Broke out on November 30, 1947. It happened the day after the partition plan at the UN Assembly. The fighting was characterized by a limited military conflict between the military of the Palestinian Arabs and the Hebrew Defense Force of the Jewish settlement in the land of Israel. A war that claimed from the Jewish settlement about 650,000 people, a greater number of victims than any other war in its history. Took place starting in 1967, Israel confronted Palestinian terrorist organizations. In this war, the Palestinians began carrying out operations which included mortar fire, shelling, terrorist infiltration into the settlements, small arms fire, and sabotage operations against civilians and the IDF forces. Squads of Palestinian terrorist organizations also penetrated the territories of Judea and Samaria. In these operations, 141 Israelis were killed and 800 were injured. On October 10, 1973, after the outbreak of the war, Palestinian terrorist organization from the southern Lebanon launched attacks on the Israeli border settlements, most of the sabotage activity focusing on firing Katyusha rockets and anti-tank missiles at the Israeli border settlements. In this incident, several civilians were injured, most of them lightly, and property was damaged. The activities of the terrorists continued even after the end of the war. In a summary published on October 22, 1 Israeli was killed and 16 injured. A military raid carried out by the IDF in Uganda on July 4, 1976 with the aim of rescuing 105 Jewish Israeli passengers and Air France crew members who were kidnapped by Palestinian terrorists during their flight from Israel to France. During the operation, 3 hostages were killed. A terrorist attack carried out on March 11, 1978 by terrorists from Fatah organization, in which 35 Israelis were murdered, including 9 children, and 71 injured. On October 5, 1985, terrorists murdered 2 Israelis in Barcelona. On October 7, terrorists from the Palestine Liberation Front took over the ship Aquila and murdered a US citizen of the Jewish origin. A terrorist attack that took place on November 25, 1987, in which 6 IDF soldiers were killed and 10 were injured. During the attack, 2 terrorists from Ahmad Jibril's organization left the Lebanese territory. A violent uprising that began on December 9, 1987. During it, the Palestinians of Judea and Samaria and Gaza Strip revolted against Israel. The Intifada was sometimes called the Stone War because at the beginning the Palestinians used stones and other improvised weapons. Violent Palestinian uprising against Israel, which began at the end of September 2000. An attack by the Hamas delegation that was carried out at the Park Hotel in Netanya on Saturday night on March 27, 2002. In the attack, 30 Israelis were murdered and 160 were injured. This is one of the worst attacks in the history of Israel. A large-scale military operation led by the IDF in the Gaza Strip, starting on December 27, 2008. The operation began following the firing of rockets from Gaza Strip at civilians and settlements in the western Negev. A large-scale military operation by the IDF in the Gaza Strip, which began on November 14, 2012. During the operation, approximately 1,500 rockets were fired from the Gaza Strip towards southern settlements, and for the first time, firing also carried out at the central cities. Despite the Iron Dome's impressive interception capabilities, 2 Israeli soldiers and 4 Israeli civilians were killed as a result of a rocket strike. Moreover, there was another civilian who was run over while running to the protected area and was seriously injured, dying dying of his wounds about a year and a half after the operation. A terrorist incident in which 3 Israeli boys were kidnapped and murdered that night, on June 12, 2014, by Palestinian terrorists from the Hamas movement. If you don't mind, I will say a few more closing words following these events. It is important for you to know that between those wars, we initiated peace-promoting actions, such as annexing territories to the Palestinians and allocating essential resources for development of territorial infrastructures, and despite this, as you can see, the Palestinians found reasons time and time again to initiate war against us. The reality shows that almost every 5 years, a war starts with those Palestinians who are never satisfied. Therefore, the IDF must not stop the war that is happening right now in order to avoid the next disaster that will probably happen again in a few years. So that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching this video. I see you again in the next one.